Hi everyone, welcome to Pop Pop's Train Room. I'm Pop Pop. I wanted to talk about how to build a mountain. Right now I'm in one of my train rooms. The other train room, I call it Area 51, and I really only have one mountain in there that I've used spray foam to build my mountains. But in this room, I have a lot of foam that I've built mountains with and rock face stuff with. So I just wanted to go over that with, if anybody had questions and things or starting out new and they have a train table and they're confused on how to build mountains. There's a lot of different ways to build the mountains. I like this process of using the spray foam, which I'll get into, but there is other processes out there that you might have seen, actually doing like strips of cardboard and taking your plaster cloth and wetting it, letting it dry as plaster over it, and then you go over that with more plaster of Paris and stuff on it. They even make molds that you could mix your plaster in, pour it in, it hardens, glue it on. There's a couple of all different shapes to create your rocks, okay? But this kind of doing the spray foam, I find is very strong. I tried years ago using the plaster, and what I found was when I was working on the train table and I'm doing more scenery and I'm leaning and my hand is onto the mountain made out of plaster and not stepping on it, but the pressure, I broke it and the plaster cracked and caved in. But I feel over the years I've been using this, and it's very strong, but it's forgiving a little bit. So if you did put your hand on it as you're working and it moves a little bit, it doesn't crack. It has a lot of give to it. So it's something that works out really well over a long term of the mountain's done and you're doing something above it and trying to get to something. So the first process, what I try to do is build some wooden framework. This could be your main decking of your train table. I use a lot of pocket holes and I drill and attach the wood. So it's really just like, it could be just scraps of wood. And like this piece here is just a scrap piece. I pocket hole glued to. I have another hunk of piece of wood over here, okay? And then I actually buy at your home supply store, Home Depot, Lowe's, the screening. This is insect screening wire that would be in your windows. It comes in a roll where you could do it like a screened-in porch. I find for this situation, don't buy a huge roll, like 50 foot long or something, because you're gonna be working in small pieces. So they sell rolls with maybe, I forget, 20 feet on it or something, or even 10 feet on it. And they normally come like 3 foot wide. Buy smaller rolls, it's easier to work with, okay? And then once you have your screening, then you want to like staple it on to wherever you have the wood. So a couple of different ways to staple it on. You can actually use a hammer staple, which a lot of people don't have, but you just hammer it and it shoots the staple right in. The other way would be, which most people probably would have, is an electric staple gun. And you just work along and you staple that in all on top of the wood. You could form the, this is aluminum screening, because they do make plastic screening. I've never tried that. I've always used the aluminum screening because I like how you can bend it and shape it a little bit. So you can use your electric staple gun and staple it all on. And then once you have that, then you go get your spray foam. Now there's a lot of different brands out there of the spray foam. I've used this one because I like the one that has gaps and cracks because it expands more. Because I want a lot of expansion, so when I go to shape it and carve it, I have more thickness to it. So you spray that all on, and of course you let it dry before you can do anything and work it. So it's a couple day process doing that, spraying, letting it dry. And then once it's dry, you want to come along with a couple different options of cutting the foam. You could use a keyhole saw, This is actually used for cutting into sheetrock, making holes for outlets and things. But you could get in there and you could use it and cut and shape your foam, okay? And then the other way, which is a little bit faster, I like to use this machine. And there's a lot of different brands out there, different names they call it. But this also, we just go right in and cut. So you could just keep cutting and carving what you like. So that's a great tool to have handy, but maybe you don't want to spend that much money and own something like that. So then once you have that, the other way too, you could go along with different, this is called a rasp for doing wood, but you could take this and shape and shave it and stuff. So once you have that, then you want to go along and paint. And what I like to use, you can actually use spray paint, okay? And this is a primer. They have brown and grays. And you spray everything. Like this, I used a lot of the grays. And then you can come along with your different tones and things to get your different colors that you want to do your mountain in. And as you're doing that, then you can do a lot of, you could buy these already made up. Glue this on here. Then once you do that, then you have your color of your paint. All right, and then you could go along and you can start doing all your ground covers, all your different dirts, grasses, glue them onto the foam, okay? And then you could go along too, once you get all your color you got, all your grasses and dirts, you could come along. What I like, instead of using the plaster, you'd have to drill holes, but this, you just make a hole, go along, take your glue, and stick your tree right in there, and glue it up with some of your Elmer's glue or your other different glues, and just pour a couple drops of glue in there, and now you have your tree. And it's very easy later, even you wiggle it, you can break it loose and move it along into different areas. The other thing that I really like about the foam is you can actually, instead of doing this type of situation where you already bought a piece to put on there, you can actually do this foam and spray it closer and then carve each little section to look like little square, bricks and rocks. So you don't have to go out and buy, your different tunnel portals, I think it's called. Okay. And then to show you this here is actually this whole corner up over here that I can actually climb up inside and stand inside that tunnel. So if any of the trains go through and they derail, I could go underneath and fix them and get to it, which is very important. If you're really going to cover a big corner like that, you should make it so you could go up inside. So, but before I did all the foam, again, I did all the little woodwork here to support everything, and then stretched to put the screening over it and sprayed the foam. All right. And there's you can make a lot of mistakes in this and it doesn't matter. You start spraying the foam and you start cutting it, and you cut actually down to the screening. And you're like, oh man, now the screening is all exposed. What am I going to do? You get out the spray foam again and spray it, wait till it dries. And actually what I did, I went along and just got some caulk. This is a good latex silicone caulk. And I used that into the spots that also I was seeing in the screening. And I just took my finger and I just smushed it in. So then when I painted, it painted, I don't know if I could find an area anywhere on my layout. I'm not sure right now. But there was spots that it showed, possibly here, that I put caulk in there. And it actually shows up a different texture than the foam. So it actually makes it look a little bit more like rocks in a way. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was, if you see in my training room here, I have a lot of, I'm going to call it shale, rock, shale facing. This different look here, and I got a lot going in this area and over there. And how I did that was, again, I went out to my local Home Depot, Lowe's, or home improvement store, and I bought ceiling tile that they normally use to put in a drop ceiling with the metal gridwork. And actually this piece I picked up, it was cracked and broken, put aside there, and I went and asked somebody, how much for this, and they said, it's broken, we can't sell it, go ahead and take it. So I grabbed it, which was great, because what I did is it was a 2-foot by 2-foot panel, and then I took it and I started cutting it up into different small strips. So I took it and cut it into small strips, and then I glued it on top each other. And then once I glued it on top each other, then I had a whole bunch of pieces glued. So then I went along and I started to carve it, shape it. And what I did with that was, you take a wire brush and you take it and you keep going along like a grain, making a grain to it. Then actually what I did to make it go a little faster is I actually took a wire wheel and I put it in my drill, and I took that. It makes a lot of dust, so this is something you want to do outside or something. Make a lot of grooves in it, and you go up and down. You could go a little deeper, and then once I had that, a couple of different, like you could do different sizes. Like this is another piece I glued together. But then you want to go along and paint it. And again, depending on what colors you want, but you start painting it and it starts looking like shale, and then I took it and glued it to my wall, and then I ended up in these sections, I sprayed the foam around it. All right. And then another interesting thing when you're working with foam, I have this, I don't know, you gotta bear with me. There's not a lot of room down here. This is a tight room, but if you could see back here, I made an elevated section. And this is styrofoam that I use, that I actually sell to elevate your track. And what I ended up doing, I ended up spray painting this with a gray spray paint, but it started to eat away at the styrofoam. But I actually like it. If there's any way you could see a close-up of it, it actually starts to pit the styrofoam and make it look like concrete piers. So, and when I first did it, I was like, oh no, it's starting to dissolve the styrofoam and eat into it. And I was like, wow, that kind of looks cool. It looks like concrete. So I left it, and I thought that was, don't be afraid to experiment and do different things. The other thing I wanted to just to point out, I know a lot of people use the pink foam, and they'll cut this and stack it on top each other and glue it, and then paint it and shape it. That is another process of using foam instead of a spray foam, but big pieces. Again, keep in mind though, if you use spray paint, it does dissolve it also, this foam. But what I found with the spray foam, when you spray it, it does not dissolve the spray foam. So you can use spray paint, or you can use just your basic water-based paints in that also. Okay? Let's see what else I wanted. I think that the couple other things you could see when you get into for cutting the foam, this is a hot wire, which actually melts the foam as you cut. I haven't tried that on this. I find the other method with this saw over here works the best. But you could try this. I know a lot of people have tried using this hot wire with this type of foam to cut it into your shapes as you start gluing it to create a mountain, stuff like that. They do sell on Scenic Express in their catalog. They sell sheets of the shale-looking sheets in different rock forms. Okay, you could buy them and glue them too and paint them. So that would be another way to get this. it starts to add up a little bit. So if you're in this having fun and building all this, sometimes you want to try to find the cheaper way to do it and get a great result. All right. And as you can see, in my layout here, I used the foam a lot. There's a lot of areas that this was actually, the wood under here is right there, and then the screening is stapled on. And I needed the room here, so I cut it, but it works so great. The other thing I wanted to point out, when you do staple it, don't staple it, especially like back here, it's on sheetrock. Don't staple it so tight. You want a little bit, when you spray the foam, that it expands and gets behind it, because the foam, again, I don't know if we could see, if you could see inside, the spray foam actually goes through the screening and comes into the inside of the tunnel here. So it expands through the back of the screen. And that's what gives it such strength, that it is really, like, to try to pull this off, you can't. It's in that screening. And that's what I feel really gives the strength to the mountain, using this aluminum insect screening wire. All right. Hopefully that answered, or if you're looking to build a mountain, I hope this helps out. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed. I think I have 71 subscribers. I think I have 40 videos. So I really appreciate it. I would love to hear comments. Leave comments if you've tried this process. If you've used the other processes that I was talking about and you like them better, that maybe you might want to try this. All right. And I also wanted to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody that just, even if you don't leave a comment, you're watching my videos, the views I get, I think that's great. And I also wanted to do a little thank you to my daughter here, who is doing all the filming for me. Like I said, I have 40 videos on, and she takes her time to help me. So I appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much.